Revenge Office Stories. 8 months after I quit my soul-crushing job, my old boss Tony called me out of the blue. His voice was cracking with a desperation I'd never heard before, a far cry from the smug, commanding tone he'd used for years. He confessed that the department was in utter chaos without me, describing it as a dumpster fire that was spreading uncontrollably. He pleaded, saying they were lost, overwhelmed, and that he'd give me anything, absolutely anything, I wanted to come back. The sheer satisfaction of holding all the cards in that moment was intoxicating, sweeter even than the $25,000 raise I had earned by boldly walking away from his toxic grip. But to truly understand the depth of that triumph, this story doesn't start there. It begins 12 years earlier in the dimly lit offices of a mid-sized marketing firm, with the slow, grinding death of my professional soul, a gradual erosion of my passion, self-worth, and work-life balance that I endured far too long. Let me paint the picture for you. I was in my early 30s when I joined, fresh from a string of freelance gigs that had left me craving stability. The company promised growth, innovation, and a collaborative environment. Tony, the department head, interviewed me himself, coming across as a no-nonsense, results-driven leader who valued hard work. I was hooked. Little did I know that initial charm masked a manipulative style that would chip away at my enthusiasm day by day. Over the years, what started as excitement turned into exhaustion, as I became the invisible backbone of the team, propping up everyone else while my own needs were ignored. This wasn't just a job. It became a battlefield where my loyalty was weaponized against me, leading to burnout and resentment that simmered beneath the surface until it boiled over. My name is Sahara, and I'm a 45-year-old digital marketing professional with a passion for crafting strategies that drive real business growth. When I started at the company all those years ago, I was brimming with ambition and ideas. The role seemed perfect, a chance to dive into cutting-edge digital campaigns, work with diverse clients, and climb the corporate ladder. Tony, my boss, initially appeared supportive, praising my quick learning curve and assigning me high-profile tasks right away. So I dove in headfirst, putting my all into the job, believing that dedication would be rewarded. But as the months turned into years, the reality set in. For 12 long, grueling years, I was the loyal, dependable workhorse, the one everyone relied on but no one truly appreciated. My responsibilities ballooned exponentially, far beyond my original job description. I began in digital marketing, handling social media and email campaigns, but soon I was unofficially directing overall strategy, spearheading major project launches, onboarding and training entire teams, and even dipping into analytics and SEO optimization. My role evolved into a catch-all position where I was expected to fill every gap, often at the expense of my personal time and well-being. The hours were absolutely brutal, a relentless grind that blurred the lines between work and life. 10-hour days weren't occasional. They were the absolute baseline, with many stretching into 12 or 14 hours. I became the go-to person for crises, answering urgent emails at 10 p.m. while trying to unwind, taking client calls on Sunday mornings during family brunch, and sacrificing countless weekends to extinguish fires that Tony himself had often ignited through poor planning or impulsive decisions. Vacations, they were a myth. Even when I tried to take time off, I'd get pulled back in with just one quick thing that inevitably turned into a full day's work. I vividly remember one particularly harrowing holiday weekend that epitomized the imbalance. It was Labor Day, a time when most people were barbecuing or relaxing with loved ones. Instead, a multi-million-dollar client was on the verge of walking away due to a colossal blunder from senior management, a miscommunication that led to a botched campaign rollout. While Tony and the other executives were off enjoying their extended weekends, perhaps sipping cocktails by the pool, I spent 72 straight hours in damage control mode. I was glued to my phone and laptop, negotiating with the irate client, rallying our scattered teams across time zones, and painstakingly rebuilding their entire digital campaign from scratch. I pulled all-nighters, fueled by coffee and sheer willpower, tweaking ad copy, redesigning landing pages, and running A/B tests until everything was flawless. In the end, I saved the account, preventing a massive revenue loss that could have tanked the quarter's numbers. My reward for this Herculean effort? A casual, offhand, "Hey, good job," from Tony as he breezed past me in the hallway the following Tuesday morning. No formal recognition, no bonus, not even a thank you email to the team. Worse yet, in the executive meeting that afternoon, which I wasn't invited to, I overheard through the grapevine that he presented my meticulously crafted turnaround strategy as his own brilliant innovation. He basked in the praise from higher-ups, while I didn't even get a mention. It stung deeply, a sharp reminder that my contributions were seen as expendable fodder for his ego. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was the insidious pattern that defined my tenure. I consistently delivered exceptional results, growing client portfolios by double digits, launching viral campaigns that garnered industry awards, and mentoring juniors who went on to shine. But Tony took the credit every time. He'd strut into meetings with my data slides, rephrasing my insights as if they'd sprung from his mind. And when annual review season rolled around, the company developed a convenient case of amnesia about my achievements. For 6 consecutive years, my salary remained frozen in place. Not a single cost of living adjustment, let alone a merit-based raise that reflected my expanded role and impact. Every year, I'd prepare meticulously for those reviews. I'd compile a comprehensive dossier, a bullet point list of key accomplishments, hard metrics showing revenue growth and engagement spikes, glowing testimonials from satisfied clients, and even peer feedback highlighting my leadership. I'd walk into Tony's office with optimism, only to be met with the same recycled excuses. "The budget is really tight this year. Sahara, we're all making sacrifices," he'd say, avoiding eye contact. Or, "We just need to see one more quarter of sustained growth before we can justify it." My absolute favorite, delivered with a patronizing smile, was, "In this economy, you're lucky to have such a stable job like this." He'd frame it as if he were bestowing a great favor upon me, allowing me to toil endlessly for his benefit, while ignoring the fact that my efforts were propping up his department's success. It was gaslighting at its finest, making me question my own value despite the evidence staring us both in the face. Over time, this constant undervaluation took a toll not just professionally, but personally. I gained weight from stress eating, developed chronic insomnia from a never-ending workload, and watched relationships strain as I prioritized the job over everything else. Friends would invite me out, but I'd cancel last minute due to emergencies at work. Family gatherings felt like interruptions rather than joys. I started to internalize the narrative Tony pushed, that I was replaceable, that my loyalty was expected without reciprocation. But deep down, a spark of resentment grew, waiting for the right moment to ignite. After enduring years of this relentless cycle, you start to go numb. You rationalize it away, telling yourself that things will improve if you just push a little harder, or that the intrinsic rewards of the work, seeing campaigns succeed, helping clients thrive, are enough to sustain you. You become accustomed to the disrespect, almost like a frog in slowly boiling water, unaware of the danger until it's too late. But there's always that pivotal breaking point, that final insult so egregious and ridiculous that it shatters the illusion and snaps you back to stark reality. For me, that moment arrived on an otherwise ordinary Wednesday afternoon, forever etching itself into my memory as the day I reclaimed my agency. Tony had called an impromptu team meeting in the conference room, the air thick with anticipation. Whispers circulated about upcoming changes, and I sat there, expecting nothing out of the ordinary. Perhaps another round of budget cuts or shifted priorities. Instead, he announced a series of promotions with a flourish, congratulating several colleagues on their advancements. My heart sank a little, but I clapped along politely. Then came the bombshell. A junior employee named Kevin, whom I had personally hired just 3 years prior, was being elevated to a senior strategist role. This was a position I had essentially been fulfilling unofficially for years, without the title, the pay, or the recognition. managing complex strategies, overseeing budgets, and leading cross-functional teams. Kevin was talented, no doubt, but I had been his mentor from day one. I onboarded him, reviewed his initial work with detailed feedback, went to bat for him in meetings when his ideas needed polishing, and even shielded him from Tony's occasional outbursts. Under my guidance, he flourished, and I was genuinely happy for his growth. But the promotion stung deeply because it highlighted the glaring inequities. Later that day, I learned through discreet conversations that his new salary bumped him to within less than $5,000 of my own compensation. Here I was, with over a decade more experience, juggling 10 times the responsibility, handling client crises, budgeting for multi-million-dollar campaigns, and training an entire cohort of juniors. Yet my loyalty earned me stagnation while his freshness propelled him forward. Gathering my composure, I scheduled a one-on-one with Tony later that afternoon. I kept my voice steady and professional, laying out my concerns without accusation. "Tony, I'm thrilled for Kevin, but I'd like to discuss my own path forward. Given my contributions and tenure, what does advancement look like for me?" His response is seared into my mind, a masterclass in condescension. He leaned back in his leather chair, interlocking his fingers with a smug, knowing smile, and said, "Well, Sahara, Kevin just brings a fresh energy to the team. We need new ideas, you know. Innovation doesn't come from the same old perspectives. Fresh energy, as if my 12 years of battle-tested experience, my proven track record of saving accounts and driving revenue, were somehow stale and obsolete." He was essentially telling me that my dedication wasn't an asset. It was a liability, a sign of being stuck in the past. In that instant, I didn't explode or argue. I simply nodded, murmured, "I understand," and excused myself back to my desk. But internally, a profound shift occurred. The numbness evaporated, replaced by a crystal-clear, cold clarity that cut through the fog of self-doubt. This wasn't about fleeting anger anymore. It was about decisive action. I realized I had been complicit in my own undervaluation by staying too long, hoping for change that would never come. That night, I went home earlier than usual, poured myself a glass of wine, and dusted off my long-neglected resume. I spent hours updating it, highlighting every achievement Tony had downplayed, and tailoring it to showcase the powerhouse I truly was. I wasn't merely job hunting. I was embarking on a quest to reclaim my self-respect, to prove to myself that I deserved better than the scraps he offered. I braced myself for a grueling job search, having heard countless horror stories about ageism in the marketing industry, especially for women in their 40s. Tales of overlooked resumes, biased interviews, and the relentless push for youthful innovation made me anxious. Would my extensive experience be seen as a boon or a burden? To my utter surprise and delight, the process was the complete opposite, a whirlwind of opportunities that reaffirmed my worth in ways I hadn't anticipated. It turns out, in the competitive world of digital marketing, deep expertise like mine, honed through years of real-world challenges, client management, and strategic pivots, was in incredibly high demand. I polished my LinkedIn profile, reached out to old contacts, and applied to a handful of targeted roles. Within days, recruiters were flooding my inbox with invitations. They weren't just form letters. They were personalized messages praising my portfolio and expressing eagerness to discuss how I could elevate their teams. It was validating, a stark contrast to the indifference I'd faced internally. Within a month, I had 3 solid interviews lined up with reputable firms, each offering exciting prospects. One was a tech startup focused on e-commerce, another a global agency with international clients, and the third a mid-sized competitor known for its innovative campaigns. I prepared meticulously, practicing responses, researching company cultures, and even role-playing tough questions with a career coach friend. The interviews went swimmingly. Interviewers were impressed by my depth of knowledge, my ability to articulate complex strategies, and my track record of turning around underperforming accounts. A few weeks later, the offers started rolling in. The standout was from the competing firm, a senior director position that aligned perfectly with my skills, overseeing a team of strategists and driving digital transformation for major brands. The company culture seemed genuinely healthy, emphasis on work-life balance, collaborative decision-making, and professional development. And the salary? A whopping $25,000 more than what Tony had been paying me, plus comprehensive benefits, including flexible hours, remote work options, and a generous PTO policy. Holding that offer letter in my hands was one of the most empowering moments of my life. It wasn't just paper. It was tangible proof that Tony's belittling narrative was a lie. I wasn't lucky to have a job. I was a highly valuable asset, and the open market recognized it loud and clear. The day I walked into Tony's office to resign felt surreal, like stepping out of a long, oppressive dream. I placed my 2-week notice on his desk, typed neatly and professionally, outlining my last day and offering to assist with the transition. His reaction unfolded in predictable stages. First, wide-eyed shock, as if the idea of me leaving was inconceivable. His dependable workhorse bolting? Unthinkable. Then it morphed into arrogance, his default defense mechanism. "Are you sure about this, Sahara?" he asked, leaning forward with a condescending smirk. "It's a tough market out there right now. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, you know." He didn't bother with a counteroffer. No questions about what it would take to retain me. No acknowledgement of the 12 years I'd poured into the company. He simply nodded, processed the paperwork with mechanical efficiency, and carried on as if it were a minor inconvenience. As I packed up my desk, boxing up files, personal items, and a decade's worth of memories, he strolled by casually and tossed out, "Don't be a stranger." It wasn't a warm send-off. It was laced with smugness, implying he expected me to fail spectacularly and come crawling back, tail between my legs. Little did he know that arrogance only fueled my determination. He had no inkling how profoundly wrong he was, or how my departure would expose the cracks in his leadership. Transitioning to my new job felt like emerging from a dark tunnel into brilliant sunlight, like taking a deep, revitalizing breath after being submerged underwater for over a decade. From the very first day, the difference was palpable. My new boss, Elena, was a true leader, collaborative, empathetic, and results-oriented without the ego. She viewed my extensive experience as a cornerstone strength, not a relic. Instead of micromanaging every detail, she empowered me to take ownership, providing resources and trust to execute my vision. My ideas weren't dismissed or co-opted. They were actively solicited in meetings, debated constructively, and often implemented with credit given where due. For the first time in years, I didn't dread Sunday evenings, anticipating the weekly grind. Instead, I looked forward to Mondays with genuine enthusiasm. The validation continued to pour in, reinforcing that I had made the right choice. Just 8 months into the role, after leading a high-stakes project that revamped a client's digital presence and boosted their online sales by 40%, Elena called me into her office. I braced myself instinctively for more assignments or constructive criticism, but instead, she beamed and announced that leadership was thoroughly impressed. They were awarding me a substantial performance bonus. 5 figures, no strings attached, along with praise in the company-wide newsletter. A bonus after only 8 months? It was mind-blowing, especially after enduring 6 years of salary freezes and zero recognition at my old job. I nearly teared up in that moment, overwhelmed by the simple act of being seen and appreciated. On the personal front, the change was transformative. With better boundaries, I rediscovered hobbies I'd abandoned. Weekend hikes with friends, reading novels for pleasure, and quality time with family without the constant ping of work emails. My health improved. I lost the stress weight, slept through the night, and felt a renewed sense of purpose. Professionally, I thrived in an environment that fostered growth, attending conferences, pursuing certifications, and even mentoring others in a supportive way that echoed what I wished I'd received. Meanwhile, back at my old company, the fallout from my departure was unfolding like a slow-motion train wreck, as relayed through the grapevine by a few trusted friends who remained. They painted a vivid picture of chaos. My exit had ripped a gaping hole in the department's operations, one that Tony's hasty fixes couldn't patch. He scrambled to hire 2 people to replace me, a junior analyst and a mid-level coordinator, hoping their combined efforts would suffice. But the first hire, overwhelmed by the toxic atmosphere and unrealistic expectations, quit after just 3 months, citing burnout and lack of support in her exit interview. The second fumbled spectacularly, mishandling key accounts I'd nurtured for years, leading to client complaints and lost revenue. The domino effect was relentless. Several senior team members I'd mentored, talented individuals frustrated by Tony's clueless, credit-stealing leadership, followed suit, submitting their resignations one after another. The department hemorrhaged talent, morale plummeted, and productivity tanked. Projects stalled, deadlines were missed, and Tony's once polished reports to executives now highlighted failures rather than wins. The ship wasn't just taking on water. It was listing dangerously, with Captain Tony flailing about, out of buckets and ideas. Whispers of his incompetence reached higher-ups, putting his own position under scrutiny. It was poetic justice, watching from afar as the empire he'd built on others' backs began to crumble. It's astonishing how one dedicated individual can often be the unsung glue holding an entire department, or even a company, together, yet their absence reveals the fragility of the whole system. Nobody notices or appreciates the linchpin until it's pulled out, leaving everything to collapse. Have you ever felt like that invisible force, propping up a flawed operation while receiving 0 credit or compensation? If so, I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. You're not alone in this. And if you're hooked on this tale of corporate karma and sweet vindication, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss the climactic twist that turned desperation into my ultimate triumph. And then, the moment I'd subconsciously anticipated arrived, crystallizing the full arc of my journey. It was a crisp Tuesday evening, 8 months after my departure, as I was winding down from a productive day at my new job, perhaps enjoying a quiet dinner or scrolling through personal emails. My phone buzzed with an unknown number, and out of curiosity, I answered. On the other end was a familiar voice, but one stripped of its usual bravado. "Sahara? It's Tony." He sounded utterly defeated, his words laced with a tremor that betrayed his vulnerability, a stark departure from the authoritative bark I'd endured for years. He started awkwardly, fumbling through small talk that felt forced and insincere. "How have you been?" "Settling in okay at the new place?" he asked, his tone probing for any hint of regret on my part. I kept my responses short, polite, and neutral. "I'm doing great, thanks," not giving him an inch to exploit. After a few beats of uncomfortable silence, he finally dropped the pretense and got to the heart of the call, his voice dropping an octave as if confessing a grave sin. "Listen, Sahara," he began, taking a deep, audible breath that crackled over the line. "I'm just going to be straight with you. We messed up big time. We completely messed up by letting you go. It's been an absolute disaster here without you. The department is falling apart at the seams. We can't keep up with the workload. Strategies are failing left and right. And we've just lost the Miller account." Ah, the Miller account, the very one I'd single-handedly salvaged over that infamous holiday weekend, pouring my soul into it while everyone else relaxed. The irony was delicious. You truly couldn't script something so perfectly karmic. Emboldened by his own desperation, he launched into a full-throated pitch, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I want you to come back, Sahara. We need you. We'll match whatever salary you're getting now. No, we'll beat it by a significant margin. Just name your price. We'll make it happen. We can even create a brand new VP role tailored just for you, with direct input to the C-suite and full autonomy over the team. Whatever perks you want, more vacation, stock options, a corner office, it's yours. We just need your expertise back to stabilize things." It was a barrage of concessions, each one more extravagant than the last, revealing how dire their situation had become. I listened in silence, letting him expose every layer of his vulnerability, savoring the reversal of power dynamics. Then he doubled down with the most galling request imaginable. Or, if you're not ready for full-time, could you at least consider a short-term consulting contract? Just to help us get the new hires up to speed and train your replacement properly. We need someone who knows the ins and outs like you do to fix this mess. In essence, he was asking me to swoop in, clean up the wreckage he'd created through years of poor management, rebuild the systems I'd originally designed, and then graciously hand it all over to an underqualified successor, all while he continued to reap the benefits. I allowed the silence to stretch out deliberately, a pregnant pause that amplified the tension on the line. In that quiet interlude, a montage of memories flashed through my mind. The 12 years of unrelenting long hours that stole time from my life. The 6 consecutive years without a single raise, despite my proven value. The countless times he'd stolen credit for my ideas, presenting them as his own genius. The condescending remarks that chipped away at my confidence. And that final, cutting fresh energy comment that dismissed my expertise as outdated. It all coalesced into a powerful resolve, transforming past grievances into fuel for my response. Finally, I spoke, my voice steady, calm, and laced with unshakable confidence. "Tony," I said evenly, "I truly appreciate the offer and the acknowledgement. It's more than I ever got while I was there. But I'm not interested in coming back. My new company values me deeply. They recognize my contributions, provide genuine work-life balance, and foster an environment where I can thrive. For the first time in my career, I'm truly happy and fulfilled. That's not something I'm willing to trade away for any price, no matter how generous." Then, addressing his fallback plea, I continued with deliberate poise. "And as for consulting or training a replacement, my personal rate for that kind of high-level crisis intervention starts with a 5-figure retainer, paid in full upfront, plus expenses. But honestly, Tony, my schedule is completely booked solid with exciting projects and clients. I'm afraid I simply can't accommodate your request at this time." The words hung in the air, a polite but firm rejection that underscored my newfound autonomy. The ensuing silence on the other end was profound, the most satisfying sound I'd ever experienced. It was the audible defeat of a petty tyrant finally realizing the consequences of his actions, the humbling moment when he grasped that he had irrevocably lost control. He stammered a weak, "I understand," followed by a mumbled goodbye, and the call ended abruptly, leaving me with a profound sense of closure. But that phone call, as gratifying as it was, wasn't the pinnacle of my revenge. The true justice unfolded in the months and years that followed, as I channeled all the suppressed potential Tony had tried to smother into building something entirely my own. Drawing on my vast experience, I founded my own digital marketing agency, grounded in a singular, revolutionary principle. Be the boss you always wished you'd had, one who prioritizes empathy, fairness, and genuine growth. Launching the agency wasn't easy. It required late nights of planning, securing initial clients through my network, and navigating the uncertainties of entrepreneurship. But my passion propelled me forward. Today, my company is not just surviving, it's thriving exponentially. We've assembled a dream team of talented professionals, many of whom escaped similar toxic environments. We pay competitive salaries from day one, ensure credit is always given where due, and celebrate collective wins with team retreats and bonuses. Work-life balance is non-negotiable. Flexible hours, mental health days, and no after-hours emails unless it's a true emergency. The growth has been remarkable. We've landed high-profile clients that Tony could only dream of, global brands seeking innovative, data-driven strategies that we've delivered with flair. Ironically, we've even poached 2 brilliant minds who finally got fed up with working under Tony, bringing their skills to our supportive fold. Our revenue has doubled year over year, and industry accolades have followed, including awards for campaign excellence and workplace culture. The ultimate revenge wasn't merely declining Tony's plea. It was forging my own path, rising as a superior leader than he ever aspired to be, and achieving a level of success that eclipsed his narrow vision for me. Watching his company continue to struggle while mine soars is the sweetest validation of all. This entire journey, from the depths of undervaluation to the heights of self-made triumph, imparted profound lessons that reshaped my worldview. As a 45-year-old woman who was repeatedly told to be grateful for scraps, I learned that gratitude should never extend to disrespect or exploitation. You should never settle for being undervalued, no matter how stable the job appears. Your accumulated experience isn't a liability to be dismissed. It's your most potent asset, a reservoir of wisdom that sets you apart in a sea of superficial, fresh energy. Don't wait for a toxic boss or a dysfunctional company to awaken to your worth. Sometimes, you must be the one to illuminate it for yourself through bold action. The best revenge transcends petty retaliation. It's about walking away with dignity, rebuilding on the ashes of their disregard, and crafting a future brimming with possibilities they never deemed you capable of. It's turning pain into power, transforming setbacks into stepping stones, and inspiring others along the way. If this story resonates with you, perhaps stirring memories of your own battles against corporate toxicity, please hit that like button and subscribe for more empowering narratives of resilience and comeback. And if you've ever seized control of your career, pivoting from undervaluation to victory, share your experiences in the comments below. Your story could be the spark that ignites someone else's transformation. You never know the ripple effect of your courage.